This is definitely my favorite, obviously. I'm a huge Caps fan. I always have been. And to be there at that game with my teammates and for us to bring, our gold medals to there and share it with everyone in this area was really, really special for me. And just the support, and it's been tremendous from everyone in this area. And you could feel that there at that game.
Now, here's Sports on the Hill podcast.
That's right. It's Monday night. Sports on the Hill podcast, TruRadio Network, CP3, coming to you live from the lab on Blog Talk Radio, Sports on the Hill podcast, best DC coverage, DC sports coverage around. How y'all doing tonight? Welcome back to another great episode 181. So if you've been riding with us since day one and you didn't check out almost every episode, you know the anniversary of Sports on the Hill podcast is coming soon. So be on the lookout for some new things coming, anniversary show, and bigger and better things coming from Sports on the Hill podcast this upcoming year. So stay tuned and stay on the lookout. It's been an interesting past week in DC sports. We're definitely going to have a good time breaking it down. We had a whole new football league start this weekend, and the DC team putting a very impressive display on the field, which is very rare in this area in the recent history of the Redskins. And we had the Wizards having their usual up and down week. We heard some. I'm definitely going to talk to the roundtable about Bradley Beal and being snubbed for the All-Star. And we also, as always, going to talk some Capitals. They had a 1-1 week, a great game and an embarrassing game that we're definitely going to break down very soon in this hour. But before we go any further, in this 2 hours, before we go any further, I'd like to thank you, the fans, the listeners, contributors, folks that's tuning on the Facebook Live right now. David Perry, what's going on, man? Check us out. We wouldn't be here without you all, so we want to say thank you for continuing to follow, continuing to share, continuing to check us out, because we do this because we love you guys and we love our sports, and we want to get real DC sports media news out there, not this clickbait anonymous source BS that we all know about in the DC sports media. But I'm not going to go there because, I could be a whole show by itself, and we got so much more important stuff to talk about. So I think we already got Robbie G on the line. Robbie, you in the house tonight, man?
I am. I am live here in the man cave. I'm going to put myself up on camera. We've got a big show to talk about, as you were talking about. There's going to be a live Caps game that we'll be breaking down, as well as the 1-on-1 week. We've got Wizards talk. We've got some great Valor talk. Lots of great things to get into. I'm just sharing to a couple of different Caps groups and a couple other general groups real fast. But you can bring, or do you need me to bring Anna on for you?
I'll go ahead and bring in Anna so we can get ready to talk about these Caps, this 1-in-1 week. Talk about this live game that we're about to have. Puck drop in about 5 minutes versus the Islanders, who the Capitals, last time they played had a really good game, and hopefully to bounce back after that embarrassing loss the other night that we're going to have to break down, but really don't want to. Anna, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. And the feeling is mutual. I really don't want to talk about that game, but I'll breeze through it. I'll make it as PC as I can, because, man, was that ever frustrating to watch.
Yeah, I was at work, and I wasn't really paying attention. I saw the score. I started streaming the game, and once it got a little bit ugly, I turned it off. Sometimes that works with the momentum. If, I'm watching, I turn it off. Sometimes the Caps can, get it going, and I keep checking the score. But every time I check the score, it didn't get any prettier. So, yeah, we're definitely going to have to talk about it. But then you can't put too much on it. I mean, folks get upset, but it was one game. Philly has been playing well, so we'll break it down more, before we get in. So let's go ahead and talk about the bright spot of the week and the grade 8 who put up another spectacular performance.
Yeah, this is absolutely crazy when I look back and think about having to read the stats. I'm like, oh my God, like this. How can you not just love the grade 8? So here we go. We had the Kings and the Caps played last Tuesday. The only goal scored in the first period was from the Kings, and then the only goal scored in the second belonged to Carlson at 7:25, assisted by Backstrom and Hagelin. And then now we have a tied score heading into the third. So Carter scores again for the Kings at 11:33. But our captain, Alex Ovechkin, scores his 38th at 13:50, assisted by Oshie, his 39th at the 15-minute mark, assisted by Carlson, and his 40th at 18:14 with an empty netter to give the Caps a 4-2 win. I don't know about you guys, but, you know, if you gamble or not, but I would have never thought in the last, couple minutes of the third period that we would have seen a hat trick. This is incredible. This just shows, the passion and skill of Alex Ovechkin, and geez, but I do have to say, on the con end of it, I kind of wish that the Capitals didn't wait until the second half of the third to kind of show up and all of a sudden kind of get that fire lit underneath them, because they started off okay and then it not so much, and then came back. But historically, the Great Eight did. My mind's blown when I talk about them. So it was great to see, but I had kind of wished that we didn't have to wait until the last, few minutes of the third.
Very true, very true. This team has had to come back. It's one of the top teams, if not still the top team, with comeback goals and come from behind victories. As I'm sitting here watching the pregame to the Caps, and they was actually showing some of Ovi's goals, even showing the goal that he scored. I believe was his second year in the league when he fell on his back and still found a way to hook the goal in. This dude, y'all saw the article I put out. Y'all see the videos I put out about this dude. Y'all hear me all the time say that one of my dreams is to get an interview with this dude. There's nothing really more you can say. We could talk about, I can talk about the game, but I'm not even going to talk about the game, because the Kings play a tough game. They're a big team like we talked about last week. They play a physical style of hockey just like the Capitals. And, it's going to be a chess match, and then, the elite players rise up when it needs to be, and with 6 minutes left in the third period, he had no shots on goal, and then boom, 3 shots, 3 goals, a natural hat trick. Caps win the game 4-2. What more can you say about this dude and his greatness? Now he's 2 goals away from 700. There's talk about him possibly catching Gretzky for the all-time goalie, which everyone said would never be done. But the fact that we're even having a conversation about this dude says enough right there. But, this is just another feather in his cap of his greatness, and we would love to see 2 goals tonight to get 700 at home, because the next 3 games is on the road. But, it's really much nothing else I can say that I haven't already said about this dude and his greatness. It's crazy. I wish, I know Brian Brennan was at the game live, and he's going to be coming on giving his take, because I would have loved to have been there to see that in live myself. But, yeah, this dude is just great. I don't care what nobody else says. Someone put a poll out about who's greater, Crosby or Ovi, and the scale was tipped one way. Robbie went into his Cap groups and posted it, and he tipped the scales. I never got an update on the final results. So, Robbie, can you give us the final results of the poll after you break down this Kings game and what you saw after another great performance by the Great Eight?
Yeah, that's a good question. Last one I checked, we were winning by 400, but I'm going to pull it up right now so we can talk about it while we talk about that game. I was really excited about it. To see a natural hat trick is pretty incredible. I'm happy that Mike and Brian got to see it live. I'm going to bring Brian on in just a second to get his take on being there. It's kind of crazy that Ovechkin's never had a natural hat trick. He's had, I think, a 27 hat tricks up until that point, so that was pretty impressive. And to do it all in one period, a lot of natural hat tricks do happen in one period for the record, and often have to happen pretty quickly for no one to score on either team between any of those goals. Still a very impressive thing to see, something I've never seen before. And the final score, just for people keeping track, Ovi did end up topping Sid the Kid 53-47. It was pretty amazing, because when we got onto that thread, the Ovi only had 13%. So we moved the dial 40%. So that's a lot. So Carol's like, I'm not sure you can get over 1,000 people. And I was like, there's nothing that can galvanize a Caps fan base, especially when there's a couple days between hockey games, than trying to vote Ovechkin over Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, I got to give you kudos for that, Robbie, because I didn't think it was going to be possible for you for it to come back. That's why I was joking. I could go ahead and see what happens. And Robbie was like, yeah, it can happen. And the fact that they all came together and tipped the scales that well, that's a good sign. You were saying that the Capitals nation, sometimes don't show up. Look like they did for this poll right here, man.
Yeah, it started off with 1,400 people. I added an additional 2,000 people to the poll after I was posting all of those things. So, and a lot of other people shared it too. So thanks for the rest of Caps Nation for taking my shares and sharing those. And ultimately we got like 50 shares on it compared to the Penguins too. So that was great. And so I'm happy to say that Ovechkin does look better lifting the Stanley Cup. So that's fantastic. But yeah, overall, it was an incredible game. The Caps were lucky in some ways, though, because they weren't generating a lot of offense, and Ovechkin took them on the shoulders and did it. But let me bring Brian in and get his quick take on it. Brian, what was it like to see your first ever hat trick, especially as somebody who's a Rangers fan, but to see a natural hat trick, which is so rare?
Yeah, it was really awesome to go to this game. I'm really glad I went. Like you said, Robbie, the Caps were kind of playing slow in this game, and Ovechkin really picked them up. And to do it so quickly the way he did was just unlike anything I've ever seen live. I wish I had a hat so I could have thrown it. I didn't, unfortunately, but it was still cool to see people throwing their hats from the upper deck, landing on the ice. It was unlike something I've ever seen before. It was really cool. And like I said, I'm just really glad I went. Had a great time.
Yeah, what I usually do at hat trick games is I do the opposite. I tend to not wear hats too often, especially now that I've got really long hair, but I do like collecting hats, as people can see in the wall above me as I look up. And the two hats that you can see, the two Capitals ones on that wall, are both from hat tricks. So that's how I always try to remember if I ever go to a hat trick game, and if I ever go to one in the future, I'll always buy a hat at those games to remember it by. So it's an interesting thing that I'll be curious if other people end up doing that. So, but yeah, I'm really happy that you got to see it and see the energy in the building, and it was an incredible comeback and something that I was really happy to see, especially with how the rest of the week went. Because the Kings are not a very good team, but sometimes the Capitals don't show up for some of those teams, and it was nice to see them come back and get that big win. And Anna, am I right? Sam was in goal for that game?
It was Holtby.
Yeah. No.
It was Holtby?
Hey, it was Holtby.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Holtby.
Then they decided to also put him back to back and into the atrocious Saturday game.
Yeah, that's why I kind of thought they were going every other. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's exciting, and I wish I would have been there live, because I think that it would have been amazing to watch. Although slightly frustrating that it took to that second half of the third period to kind of put all to rally, and then of course rally just with Ovechkin doing what he does best. But a win's a win, and I wish it would have carried over to the next game.
Right, and I mean, he got to 40 goals, which is something that shouldn't be overlooked in the sense that he's now gotten to it in, I think now the second most seasons he's hit now, that mark. Only Wayne Gretzky's gotten more. Unfortunately, Sam is in goal for us right now, and the Islanders just scored, so that's a bit frustrating. They came down the ice. It was a good pass and then a drop pass and then a pass across the way. And Sam was moving laterally, and unfortunately that just squeaked through, I believe, 5 holes. So definitely a tough break for the Capitals. There was a broken stick. Oh, no, it was he shot it short-sided. But, yeah, it's a tough goal because he's moving left to right. And the guy was just able to squeeze it by there. So it's not a great start for the Capitals in this live game against the Islanders. There's 16:20 left in the first period. Again, the Islanders are now up 1-0. But yeah, it was exciting to see us get the hat trick. It was a good game. And Brian, do you have any final thoughts about that before we let you back in the listeners' lounge?
No, it's like I said again. I had a great time. Shout out to Mike for going to the game too. It was just a great night, and really enjoyed it.
Sounds good. All right. Well, Brian, we'll bring you back for Wizards talk and as well as DC Defenders talk a little bit later. So, Anna, let's just quickly get through the next game, go through the goals, and we'll briefly get through it, and then we'll talk more about this game and the upcoming schedule.
Sounds good. So Saturday's game was atrocious and a bit painful. So the Caps scoring included Oshie's 20th at 18-18 with a power play goal, and Kuzi scoring his 19th at 12-17 in the third, assisted by Oshie and Favari. But then we had the Flyers scoring 5 times. This is frustrating. It really came down to a lack of everybody falling apart. I'm not even I will not put this on Braden Holtby. Our D-line was not, I don't even know where they were. They were out to lunch. And when you look at the face-off percentages, you have the Flyers with 73 and the Caps with 27. Really quite pathetic on that end. And then what really got me was the penalty minutes, 15 for the Flyers and 17 for the Caps. Not necessary. I get that there's, they're heated and taunting and whatnot, but come on. It just, I really can say that when I watched this game, and I, had really hoped that they were going to maybe turn it around. Wishful thinking on that end, because they just, the Capitals did not have 60 minutes of hockey, and I have to say that I think all of them just looked tired, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was just not.
Yeah, it was. It was an ugly game. Like I said, I didn't watch the whole thing. I was checking the stream, and it started out okay. I believe it was a 1-1 tie, and like you said, Philly, I believe scored 5 unanswered, and yeah. Like I say, it sucked to see it. The only issue I had, me and Robbie was talking during the game offline, and my only issue is I recall the 7-2 Caps butt whipping on the Flyers, and once it got out of hand, the Flyers wanted to brawl. I was mad. I felt like that's what the Capitals should have did this time, since they were down 7-2. I say they're just out there just trying to knock folks out and see what happens. Sometimes you got to have those games, but for the outcome, sometimes like I talk about, sometimes the other team is ready. The Flyers have been playing some good hockey. I'm not saying the Caps overlooked them, maybe looking toward the Owls, but sometimes you're going to have a flat one, and I believe that's the first blowout loss this team has taken this year. So I'm not really tripping too bad. I just saw the goal from this Islanders game that Robbie just broke down. I'm not really too upset about it. It was a breakdown on the defensive end. They got an odd man rush going the other way. They got a fortunate bounce off a skate to the open man, and he got the goal. So hopefully they can get it together. I recall last time they played Islanders, they came back out from 2 goals down, I believe. So I believe that's the game they came back from 2 or 3 goals in the last minute. So they definitely come back from behind on this team.
They're going to have to do the same thing because the Islanders just scored again. So the Capitals...
team is behind, damn it.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because this one, I think it was Tom Wilson gave up the puck in their own zone. They have a bunch of different shots at it. Eventually, Sam is too high up in the crease, and they're just whacking at him, and I don't see exactly who gets it, but they got it in.
That was a hustle play. We know what Trot's teams the Capitals did the same thing. So loose puck, hustle, and that was a hustle goal. They got to put the fourth line out there to try to get the momentum back and try to swing this momentum back in their favor. They need some forecheck, and they need to play a little bit better defensively. Just a breakdown, but you can't have 2 breakdowns in a 3-minute span to go down 2-0.
Yeah, it's very much actually like the Flyers game in a lot of ways, where it's just defensive lapses all in a row. And there was almost a third one right there. It was not a good play down low.
Yeah.
The Caps are trying to get out of their zone for a third time, and they couldn't even get that breakout correct. They finally are through to the neutral zone and into the offensive zone, but it's a struggle for them to get out of their own defensive zone right now. So
yeah, it's hard to watch.
Yeah,
gotta be honest. I feel like they're kind of scattered. It's almost like they're a bunch of players playing on a team that they don't know their teammates. It's like, come on now, we're more than halfway into the season. You all know each other so well, so let's get back to everything that you guys are, like, why you are on the lines together, why you are paired up together, and don't make, just shoot it. Stop trying to make these fancy passes and all these other things. It's just, that's the most frustrating thing. It's like, you have an opportunity to shoot it, just go. And that's what I want to see out of this game, because I think if we're having to watch the Capitals lose to the Islanders, not saying that they're going to, but right now it's, I'm always the optimist, hoping that the second half will be better. But I just don't, I think if we're kind of in a headspace right now of what is going on with this team, a loss to this particular team is only going to carry over to future games, which is exactly what I don't want.
Yeah, we've got a tough...
they need the boost.
Yeah, they have a tough road string up ahead. So I see what you're saying in the fact that they need to find a way to get back into this one. I was happy there in the last minute or so. We got a shot and then forced an icing, and so they're being hemmed in a little bit more, which is, we just got to create opportunities. I mean, early on in this game, in the first 10 minutes, it's been 5 scoring chances for the Islanders and only 2 for the Capitals. The Caps just squandered another great opportunity up in front of the net, where they just couldn't put wood on it, and it's another icing though. So it'll be interesting to see if they can continue to force the pressure here. At 11 minutes and 12 seconds left in this first period here, but Eller did some fancy footwork, and there was some movement trying to get the puck towards the net, but unfortunately off of the rebound they couldn't cash in. It was actually kind of a similar breakdown that had happened on the other way, but the Islanders were able to figure a way to get it out where the Capitals were not so lucky. So the Caps won that face-off, so they're still continuing to try to put pressure on here. We can see if they're able to do something more with it.
That's the reason I feel that it's not really that bad, that they're still getting opportunities, they're just missing opportunities. So it's not like they're not getting the chance to score, they're just a little out of sync right now. This team is the number 1 team in the league, scoring the most, 6-on-5 goals top. I mean, you're going to go through laws in the season, and, they're still number 1 in the league. So I'm not really tripping. They're still getting to the net. They're just not connecting. And like I said, my stream is a little bit behind yours, so I'm seeing the passes after you just talked about them. And it's like they're there, but, either the defense will get a lucky bounce off of his stick, or, they just miss each other by, a smidgen. I'm not really concerned about it, because they're still getting to the net. They're still, driving hard. They're still forechecking. They're still playing their game. They're just not getting the bounces right now. And we know that's what it's about, momentum and bounces and hustle. And right now, the Islanders got a little bit more hustle than the Capitals do. That's all.
Right. I will note that Boston Bruins are the number 1 team in the league right now. But...
I have a question.
They topped us.
If I could.
Which sucks. But yeah, what's your question?
Yeah. It's just, Carol, you had so many good points in what you just said, and then of course I look at things and I'm like, I'm a little bit more frustrated. That I'd like to know, are either one of you concerned with the fact that after the All-Star game we were win-loss, win-loss, win-loss? That inconsistency seemed to have kind of, appeared. And along with that, it was, some of the games, like, you're kind of winning on a fluke. It's like, we shouldn't have, like, as amazing as it is for the captain to score a hat trick in the last, second half of the third period against the Kings. It's like, we shouldn't have to come down to something like that to win. And not that the Kings aren't a good team, but that kind of desperate thing. So I'm wondering if you guys have any concern about the kind of like the 500 that we're at right now on going into
for the next couple of games.
Well, Carol, I'll let you go first.
Me?
Yeah.
Me personally, I'm not. I mean, it's still early out of the All-Star break. There's still time to right the ship. So long as they're going win-loss, and not going on extended losing streaks, I'm not really concerned how they're going to, start losing on a consistent basis. Because the only thing that I'm really not going to say concerned about, but the only thing that has my eye is the power play. Because, it's been effective for so long. Teams are, putting pressure and taking time and space away on the power play, which is, kind of stymied up the power play for last few weeks. So I know they were looking at, they added a couple of wrinkles here and there. They moved Obi from the left wing to the right wing, I saw in the game, and, had moving stuff around. So that's my only real concern right now is the power play, even though it's not a big deal in the playoffs because you don't get as many power plays. But going down the stretch, that's going to definitely be a feather in the cap of the Capitals if they could get their power play, because they're going to get penalties with the skill and the way they can skate and the way they can move the puck. So I'm not really concerned right now. But down the line, if it's still going that way, then yeah, that would have me more concerned. What about you, Robbie?
I am concerned at the intensity level that I see being put out. They're just, I think that they're maybe too concerned about 700. I really almost want them to put that in the back burner and just not even think about it. Like, when it happens, it happens. He's going to score 2 more goals at some point. And really get back to playing with intensity, playing for each other. I think Ovechkin's the most dangerous when everyone else is a danger to score too, because then it opens up opportunities for him. When other teams start to shade towards Ovechkin, and the team is trying to get him the goals, I think that can become detrimental. And I'm not saying that they're necessarily doing that. We see glimpses of them watching the game and not necessarily putting it all on the ice. Unfortunately, oh my goodness, the Islanders just had a huge threatening opportunity right there in front of Sam, but somehow they were able to get it out of the zone. But it was some ugly play in front of the goaltender, again by the Capitals, and they got a little bit lucky there. They need to play with some control through the neutral zone and be able to have structure and really basically pretend that you're one of those last place teams that need these points desperately. And I think that at some point, being number 1 in the league so early isn't so great sometimes. I don't want them. I want them to play meaningful games down the stretch. I don't really care about them being the number 1 team at the end. They seem to do better when they don't have the President's Trophy. But there are some concerning things. I'm not overall concerned, but they just need to play within themselves, and everybody needs to, what the coach says, pull on the rope at the same time.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's a long season, and like I said, where we are in the season, I think they can right the ship. I mean, this is the same core that did win the cup, so I mean, not saying that they're just going to depend on that to get them down the line, but they know what it takes to win. They know how to play solid hockey, do the right things, make the simple play. So right now, like you say, they're playing with house money. They still topping one, if not first, second in the league, in good position in the Metro. So I mean, you're going to have some lows. So I'm not really concerned right now going forward in this game. If we continue to see, the Islanders get on top and the Capitals not able to score, then I would have some concern, because that'd be 2 bad games in a row that the offense hasn't looked solid at all, not even talking about the power play. So I can see where there couldn't be some concern, but I'm not really at that concern level yet.
Right. I think the penalty kill is great. I think 5-on-5 is great. I'm not impressed with our power play overall, and I'm just not entirely impressed with our compete level at all times. I think there are times where we just turn it on, and I think we get somewhat complacent in the fact that we can turn it on and just come back in games, which is great. It's a skill that most teams wish that they had, that resilience factor. But the thing is they need to get back to where they were earlier in the season, when they were leading from the beginning and just dominating through an entire game. And to be fair, I've only seen 4 or 5 of those type of games the whole season. So it's pretty impressive that they've been able to get wins even without it. But I will be happy to note that a goal horn's about to go off in a second. Maybe. All right. Now it's just adding pause for dramatic effect. But it is Alexander Ovechkin getting $6.99, I believe. So, so
I have the delay too.
Yeah, what is with this goal horn? Come on. They're in They're in Canada. Yeah, there it is.
There we go. Woohoo!
So it's a shot from up with John Carlson. It deflects off of Ovechkin. He whacks at it. He gets it around the defender, and it's in for a goal. Let's see if it does touch him. Oh, I don't know. It may be John Carlson's goal. It'll be interesting to see. It's from the overhead angle. I'm not sure it touched Ovechkin. So it's either John Carlson from the point and it was deflected by Ovechkin, which is what they were originally calling, or John Carlson just threw it through a bunch of bodies and it found the net. Either way, it makes it 2-1 Islanders and 6:40 left in the first period. So that's a big goal for the Washington Capitals. 3 out of the last 5 people to hit the 700 mark did so against the New York Islanders. So it's just a fun fact, including Wayne Gretzky. So, could happen. It'd be interesting to see if Ovi does get credit for it. I'm sure John Carlson will totally say that Ovi touched it. Whether or not he did or didn't, I'm sure that they will review that. So, it's definitely a goal. It's just that I'm sure that the overhead people will review to make sure that they credit it correctly before it's announced over the in-arena audio. And I haven't seen the score come across yet, so on the top scoreboard. But anyway, so let's talk quickly about the upcoming schedule, because I know that we'll have Wizards talk in just a couple of minutes. The upcoming games, we're going on a bit of a road swing here. The first game is going to be against the Avalanche Thursday at 9. The other game is going to be Saturday at 10 against the Coyotes. And then on next Monday, it's a holiday, so and it's so I guess the 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock start over in Vegas, but for us it's a 6 o'clock start, right? Yeah, because it's out in the West Coast. So yeah, so it's a 6. So next week we'll probably be on air at the same time at 7. So that game will be in the middle of the game, which is rare. Usually we're talking during the first period. We'll probably be talking during the second period in that game, and we'll actually probably finish the game during the broadcast. So let's break those down real fast. The Avalanche are one of the best teams in hockey. I'm pulling up their record right now, but I believe they were one of the top teams of the West. They are second in the Central, yes, so they're second in the Central, and overall they have 70 points. St. Louis is 73. And Washington has 77, so just to give you where we are in that mix, in that conversation. But they've been fantastic, winning their last 3 games, and against some pretty decent teams. Carol, real quickly, what are some of your thoughts about playing the Avalanche?
Well, I didn't know they were doing that well. I know they had a lull earlier in the season, and I know Andre is over there. I don't know if you've been keeping track of him, but I haven't, so I don't know how he's doing over there. But it's going to be another competitive game. They got 73 points, so that means they must be doing something right. And hopefully the Caps can right the ship and not get behind and have to come from behind and actually can win the game from ahead for a change. So that's all I'm hoping for, and we can wait and see what happens.
Right. Real quickly to answer the Burakovsky stats, you know that I was always the big Burakovsky apologist in this group. 17 goals, 23 assists for 40 points, which is not bad in 51 games played. So he's doing pretty well for them. In fact, that's...
He's on the second line?
I think he's on the second line. That sounds right. But 40 points, by the way, would be a career high for him. So...
that's not bad.
Yeah. So, he's playing pretty well. But, I said this last year that I thought that he's a good player, but he was just in a rut with us and he needed to just go somewhere where it was a good fit, and I'm sure he was going to thrive. I kind of knew that, going into it. I'm not saying we shouldn't have traded him. He just wasn't going to be that 40-point player for us. But I'm happy he was for them, and we were able both teams, Colorado and Washington, have traded a lot of players back and forth over the years. So I'm okay with them getting the good one out of this trade, because we've gotten the benefit of other trades in the past, including getting Orpik some salary cap relief last year. So, Anna, real quickly, your thoughts on the Avalanche?
I think this is one team that we do not need to look at lightly. I think that they are, I don't know. There's something about this team that just feels like going to be a huge contender. Aside from Burakovsky doing well, Grubauer's, he's holding his own. But McKinnon, I mean, come on. So I think with a 32-16-6 record, just one that I'm a little bit nervous about. The Capitals playing in Colorado, but maybe they'll rally because sometimes they seem to do better at home, away. I think this will actually be kind of a exciting game because I don't want to give too much credit to when they play the night.
Right. To answer Grubauer's,
this will be my highlight game.
Grubauer's stats, just real quickly: 17 wins to 11 losses and 4 overtime losses. Which, when I'm doing my fast math, he's already played 33 games, which matches his career best, which was the 2018 for Colorado, where he also played 33. For Washington, the most he ever did was 28. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I mean, he's not doing too bad. 2.72 goals against, 9.1 save percentage. So he's right around his averages for his career. So he's playing pretty well for them. They're going back and forth between the two goalies. And by the way, John Carlson was credited eventually with that goal. Unfortunately, so I take it back. We're still at 698. I thought that might happen. I just know that Ovi was dapping everybody up first when he came back to the bench. So that's usually a sign that he touched it. But I'm sure they were trying to play it off like he did. Because he said it himself. He likes to get through these milestones as fast as possible. He doesn't want them hanging over people's head, which I think is the right way to look at it. All right, real quick, we're going to go to the Coyotes game. I'm trying to pull up the Coyotes stats right now, but they are not as good if I remember correctly. They are fighting for the wild card spot right now. They're only 1 point out of the second wild card spot with 61 points. So they're doing okay, and those are some of the feisty teams, those sort of middle of the mix teams. So it'll be interesting to see, how that goes. Carol, what are some of your thoughts?
Kind of similar to the game we just talked about versus the Avalanche. There, like you said, a good team, but not great team. They're solid. They can give you problems. They play solid defensively, and, they can score goals. They're not known for scoring, but they have been known to put up some goals if they're given an opportunity. And we've seen the Caps have defensive lapses that do allow odd man rushes and leave the goalie out there on his own sometimes. So hopefully they can get back to Capitals hockey, staying true to the game plan and the scheme and stop with the fancy passes and get back to basics. But I don't really see them making too many fancy passes, just some of the passes that they normally used to make, but maybe they just get back to just straight line passes for now and go from there and see if that improves their luck on these bad bounces they've been getting.
Anna, what are your thoughts on the Coyotes?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like even though we had the loss back in November, November 11th, it was 4-3. I think that we can rally. I truly do. I'm more concerned about the Colorado game, not so much the Coyotes game. But again, at this rate, with our win-loss record, we can't take anything for granted. So I'd like to just see the lines kind of come together. I know that we're kind of changing things up a little bit with, Jensen and Gudis is a healthy scratch and what's going to benefit the team. Let's just get back to when the Capitals were happy on ice and everybody was having a good time. And I have to say, I don't even want to talk about Ovechkin in the 700. I think it takes away from so much, unfortunately, the attention shift. So I think that could probably, if fans are seeing it, I'm thinking that I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to be a player, to know that, you have that kind of lingering over your head. Do you want him to get it? Of course you do, but does it need to be the focus? No.
Right.
So,
Unfortunately, our new young defensive player they brought up, who's playing instead of Gudis tonight, FbLive, just took a holding, I believe. So there's a power play now for the Islanders. There's about 93 seconds left in that power play. 2:13 left in the first period. Again, the Islanders are up 2-1. Capitals clear it again. I'm sure that the Capitals fans were probably booing the fact that that was John Carlson got it. But on the bright side, the Islanders just took a holding call, so I believe that should even it up. So there'll be about a minute and 23 seconds of 4-on-4 hockey now. So that'll be interesting. And Arun said, yeah, they wanted Ovechkin to get credit so that way they get 700 goals, because Arun said that he was listening and there was some boos in the audience when John Carlson was announced, which is kind of funny. But I'm not surprised. So I know people really wanted to see 700, and I'm sure a lot of people paid a lot of money to go to this game tonight. But it's funny because I'm hearing Caps fans on the road paying a lot of money to go to some of these games in the upcoming week. So, like, you have Caps fans rooting against their own interests, potentially, here. So, right away on the 4-on-4, the Islanders come back and they score a goal. That is not what we wanted to happen. It makes it 3-1 with 1:54. So, my dog doesn't seem to like it either. So yeah, it's a pass down low, and or a pass all the way down through the ice, and then a pass across. And unfortunately, there's a bouncy biscuit that he got to. So anyway, Sam's just gotta wake up and figure his stuff out. But I mean, a lot of these are defensive lapses. But all right, the last game is against the Golden Knights. There's 3 or 4 teams all within a point here on the in the West, all fighting for either the last spot in the Pacific or a wild card spot. So they want to hold on to this spot in the standings. They've got an interesting week. They play Minnesota, followed by St. Louis, followed by the Islanders, and then Washington. So they've got a bunch of games up here. I'm going to let my dog out real quickly, but you guys analyze this Golden Knights game.
Golden Knights, it's always going to be a battle between these two teams, with the Capitals winning their first Stanley Cup against them. And like I said, the Capitals don't play Capitals hockey, and get out of these defensive lapses, and ineffective power play at this point in the game is like you say, 50-50 win-loss. So hopefully they can get it together and put together a good game against Vegas on the road. They're a better team. Well, they've been better, the best team on the road this season, I believe, if they still correct. I know Robbie probably has that stat somewhere, but I know they were tops in the league on the road a couple of weeks ago. I'm thinking they're still in that place, so maybe that's what they need to simplify things, go on the road to get things back to the way they were, because they did have the most road games played in the first half of the season, so they're going to have less in the second half, but it seems like they play better on the road, so this might be what they need, because they had a 4-game, homestand. Maybe they need to go on the road to make things back simple and, get things together. What you think, Anna?
No, I couldn't agree more, especially going back to Vegas. There's, they should have that nostalgic feeling of, like, holy shit, this is where we won the cup, and let's go back to that. I mean, some of the players are not with us. They're on different teams from 2018. But bottom line is, when you're in that zone, there's no reason for them to even think that they need to not give 100%. And I think we're going to see the Capitals rally on the road. But man, it's just, it is frustrating that, win-loss, that inconsistency. And, I know a lot of the social media people want to put it on the goalies, but honestly, the last game they played, a lot of that was on the defensive line. They just weren't there. I don't know what happened, and you can't blame Braden Holtby. So when Gil and I spoke on the Power Play podcast yesterday, we kind of mutually agreed that maybe it was time to sit Holtby out for maybe 3 to 5 games, see how Sam Knopf does, because we haven't been really seen him play back-to-back. And, you know, there's a lot of give and take on certain players are playing stronger when Sammy's in the net. You know, and is that going to matter? I don't know. Like, we really, truly won't know. And does Holtby need to be, quote-unquote, benched to, you know, it won't be the first time we did it with Grubauer. And in the end, obviously, we got the Stanley Cup out of it. But I don't know. Like, I'm just sort of torn on that. And I feel like there's a division on the team right now, and I'm not quite sure what it is. But I'm hoping road trip, you know, little team bonding, maybe put Sammy in for the next 5 games. Maybe that'll kind of rally everybody back together.
To answer,
I'm not really. Holtby still has 20 wins on the season. You know, I'm not really too concerned about it. Could he play better? Yeah. But like I said, with the defensive lapses, with the, as you mentioned, the younger decor, and you know, adjustments that are being made, I'm not really too concerned about it. I don't think the blame goes on either goalie. Both of them are playing well when they get in there. They get, you know, put on the island sometimes because of defensive lapses and bad puck bounces and, you know, just hustle play. So I'm not really, like I said, at this point in the season, I'm not really concerned. If it was later in the season and we were still seeing this inconsistency, then yeah, I have to agree with that point. But right now, I'm not really too concerned about it.
Right. Well, I got a couple of quick stats for you. First of all, Carol, you're right. The Washington Capitals still have the most points on the road with 41, I believe, if I did my math correctly. I was crunching numbers while we were talking. So the second highest, I believe, is the Blues. They should have 8. So I think that they were also 41 maybe, but they played... they were not. So Colorado Avalanche are the second best. We're the only team that has 20 wins on the road. We'll put it that way. So that's fantastic. And the other stat that you were just talking about, Braden Holtby, with 20 wins, puts him in 8th currently, a 3-way tie for 8th in wins in the NHL currently. Only 7 players have more wins than him. So, and we're watching right now, he's not in net, and the defensive lapses are still happening, and it's really a lot of... it's really more the defense that's having a bunch of issues because Sam's not stopping the same exact goals. So I think that a bunch of fans are quick to jump on the team, but it's unfortunate. But before I let you go, Anna, because I see that we're already a little late into our Wizards talk, we'll probably extend it past 8 just a little bit. But let people know what you guys talked about on Power Play Point podcast yesterday.
Sure. Thank you so much for that. We basically the first 15, 20 minutes, I mentioned that I had a chance to go to the Craig Laughlin Family Foundation party for, to raise money for rare cancer. It was fantastic. I was kind of blown away by everybody that was there. It was a very cool event, and I was humbled to go, so it was great. And we talked about that, and then of course, Gil and I had kind of get into it a little bit about our opinions on changes and things that we need to see going forward in the next couple Capital games. So that is, we recorded it, actually, hats off to Gil. We recorded yesterday at around 6 o'clock, and I think he had the episode out around 8:30 or 9.
Yep.
So I think I had it out and was sort of watching the Oscars at the same time.
Yeah, I started to listen to it right before the Oscars, so he got it out in record time. So good on him. It was a great episode. It was a great story about you getting to go to that event, so people should check it out. SportsOTHP.com. Click the Power Play Point podcast button, and it's the latest podcast there, and give it a listen for sure. And Anna, thank you so much. We'll let you know if somehow we do our show an hour earlier. There's a small chance that might happen, but we'll probably do it at 7 o'clock next week, and it'll be during the night's game. It'll either be at the start of it or in the middle of it. So we'll break down these important 3 games this week, and we'll also break down that live game as well. I hope that you have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you guys next week.
All right, Anna, have a good night.
All right, so I'm pulling up the board right now, and we got a bunch of people on live for our Wizards talk, so I'm going to switch over to that right now. Are you going to end
When
that?
you switch over to Wizards Talk, I'm going to go ahead and end my Facebook Live feed that I had going on my page for Capitals Talk. I'll be back for XFL Talk after the music break, and we can break down the inaugural weekend of the new football league and talk about that and break that down. But I'll go ahead and step to the side and let you guys talk some NBA.
Sounds good. All right, we got a full house tonight. I'm pulling up live Wizards stats so we can break down the games from the week that was. So we're gonna bring Brian back in. Thank you for staying in our listeners' lounge during that Caps segment. How are you doing today, Brian?
I'm doing well, Robbie. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. All right, we're gonna bring in Ken, DC People's Champion, next. He's the host of No Spots podcast on Fridays on TruRadio Network. How are you doing today, champ? Oh, I think did that not go through? Are we double muted? Champ, are you there?
Hold on, my bad. I was muted. I muted myself.
There we go. There's the double mute that Carol always waits for. So it happened.
Yeah, there you go.
Now the show is official.
Damn it, man. I'm doing wonderful, Robbie. How you?
We're doing well. My son's a little upset that he's not watching the live hockey game. You may hear him yelling above.
Oh,
I know. Well, it's not a good game. We're down 3-1, buddy. You don't want to see this. So.
Yeah, you know.
Exactly. All right, we're going to bring in Arun next, our stats guy. How are you doing today, Arun?
Not bad. I was just double-checking if I was muted right before this.
Yep. Sounds good. And then Tim is our last member of our roundtable. How are you doing today, Tim?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. On a 1 to 10, how loud is my son? Because I can lower my audio.
It's pretty hard to hear.
Okay, good.
That's why I was kind of slow. But yeah.
All right, good. All right, I'm just making sure. 'Cause
Oh,
he's loud to me. But he's also my son.
little
So
guy.
yeah, I know. He's not happy because, all the TVs are down here.
I just want to pick him up and just hold him and be like, it'll be okay. The Caps are good.
The Caps are good. They'll be okay. It'll all be all right. He actually just wants to watch the Super Bowl again for like the 70th time. But
Hey.
that is neither here nor there. I'm sure that would not make Anna happy. But we'll move on to Wizards. We're going to do a lightning round of each of these games, and then we're going to break down the upcoming week and maybe talk about the All-Star, but I don't even know if we'll have time to that. So we're going to start off with the Golden State Warriors game. The Golden State Warriors came out and they outscored the Wizards 40-36 in the first. They continued to outscore them 32-27 in the second. And then in the third, they kept on outscoring them. Is this right? Yeah, 27-23. And the Wizards finally came back and won a quarter and won at 31-26 in the fourth. But by that time, they had already lost this game. So we're going to start off with Champ. What were some of your thoughts on the Golden State Warriors?
I didn't get to listen to this game live, but I did follow it, and I mean, it's just so crazy to see how the Wizards seem to play more up for teams that are up there in the standings, whether it's the West or the East. Yet when it comes to teams that they should beat, they don't seem to put up as much of a fight as they should. And the fact that it took to the fourth quarter for them to actually score more points in a quarter than their opponent, but by then it was too late, is just a telling sign for me. So this is not a good game against a very poor Warriors team, and this just wasn't good at all.
Yeah. Brian, you said you caught some of this game. What were some of your thoughts?
Yeah, the Wizards have been playing well going into this game, and I kind of expected it to continue against the Warriors because unlike the last couple of years where the Warriors have been one of the best teams in the whole NBA, they're pretty bad this year. So I was expecting the Wizards to come out and play well. But in what I saw of this game, the Wizards did not look great. From what I can tell, Golden State was just completely outplaying them in this game, and it wasn't. I to me, it didn't even. I mean, the Wizards might have made. I didn't see this fourth quarter, but the Wizards might have made it close in the fourth quarter. But what I saw, Golden State was way better than the Wizards in this game, and this was a game that the Wizards could win. And if they want, if they're talking about the playoffs and want to have any chance of making the playoffs, they probably should have won.
Yeah. All right, we're going to leave that there because I want to talk a little bit more about the next game, so I'll bring each one of you guys on for that one. The next one's against the Mavericks. It was a much better game, especially with a much better ending. So in that game, the Dallas Mavericks came out with an early lead. The Wizards came back to tie it up at halftime. The Wizards took a little lead in the third, and then they squeaked out just a couple of extra points into the. I guess the Wizards were down 2 at halftime, and so it was pretty much tied going into the fourth, and it was a back and forth game, and the Wizards were able to squeak away with a 119-118 victory. Arun, I'll let you start off on this game.
Yeah, Luka Doncic and JJ Barea were out in this one, but Rick Carlisle and Dallas Mavericks, when he coaches them, they typically beat the Wizards. So still a good win. John Wall was a good commentator, probably the best color commentator the Wizards have had this season, including play-by-play too. Napier, who the Wizards just acquired, had a good game. And Wizards shoot 50% from 3. It's the first win for the Wizards this season when a game decided by 4 points or less. Previously, they were 0-7.
Interesting. So they've not been playing well in close games. Tim, what are some of your thoughts about this game and the Bradley Beal winner?
Yeah, it was a great shot. I love Bradley Beal's son. I'm glad I get to shout out his really cute kid. Everybody should watch that post-game interview video if you haven't. But it was a good close win. I don't know if the Wizards would pull it out if Luka was playing, but they got balanced scoring. They had 3 guys off the bench with double digits. And I don't know if this was Napier's first game, but it was his first or second total game. Okay, yeah. He's been really good since he came over to the Wizards. I think he's going to fit in well and probably be a much better two-way player than IT. I mean, it's not hard to play better defense than him. So I like the minor trades so far. I think it's good for the team to get some new blood and some guys that maybe they can develop and pick up for cheap. So, definitely a feel-good win.
Indeed. Champ, what were some of your thoughts on this game?
All right. My first point, and I don't want to steal the sauce from Arun here, but I'm going to throw out a stat here. They had 6 players in double figures, including Napier in his first game as a Wizard, having 14 points off the bench. Number 2, why is Bradley Beal not an all-star? The man had 29 points, and 2 of those points were on the game winner, and yet he is not playing in the All-Star game in Chicago. Travesty of justice, but what a win for this team coming off that tough loss against Golden State to be one of a very good Mavericks team coming off of that loss.
Yeah, I want to bring this up to Brian because he's the most impartial of all of us because we're all Wizards fans and Brian is a Knicks fan. Brian, he's averaging almost 30 points a game, and a player hasn't averaged over 28 and not made the playoffs since the 80s, or not missed the All-Star game, I'm sorry, since the 80s. What are your thoughts about his potential snub? He was ranked 3rd by players, I believe, in voting. So clearly the players like him.
Yeah, I think it's completely outrageous. I think for the most part the All-Star selections this year were right, but there were a few guys on there that I would have put over. I would put Bradley Beal over on the East, from the East at least. And him and Devin Booker from the Suns is also a huge snub. Derrick Rose as well. I thought this was a big year for snubs, but yeah, definitely. Bradley Beal, I think ever since he got rejected from the All-Star team, he has been putting on a show in every game. He's putting up big numbers, and we saw it in this game where he hit the game-winning shot. It's like it's really woke him up, and he's trying to prove that he deserves to be on the All-Star team, and it's good for the Wizards, that's for sure.
Sounds good. All right, let's get into this last game because it's already 8 o'clock. We may skip a little bit of the preview part of it, or I may just give one game to one person in each one of these. But real quickly, the Grizzlies game, I'm pulling up the stats right now for that one. It was a really disappointing loss, specifically because the Wizards were in a really good place after the third quarter, outscoring them in most of the quarters, except for they were outscoring the third by a little bit, but it was close up until the end. But the Grizzlies outscored them 26-14 and ended up winning by 7. So they went into that quarter up 5, I believe, and then ended up losing by 7. So that was a pretty atrocious fourth quarter, especially at home against a not so great Grizzlies team. Arun, what were some of your quick thoughts on this game?
Yeah, John Morant, the rookie for the Grizzlies, had his first triple-double, and now the Grizzlies are over 500. They're the 8th seed in the West, and that's a lot. The Wizards, if they were in the West, even though they're the 9th seed right now, they'd be the 14th seed. The Wizards did hold the Grizzlies under 50 points, but in the second half, the Wizards just missed too many easy buckets. Jan Mahimi had bad hands, which cost them 8 to 10 points. Wasn't reinserted in the fourth quarter, and the Wizards only scored 14 points, and that's not going to get it done in the modern NBA. For
sure. Champ, real quickly, your thoughts on this, and then we'll move on to the upcoming schedule.
I just like the fact that John Moran, as Ice Cube said in one of his famous songs, he fucked around and got a triple-double. But the fact that you were up 5 in the fourth quarter and lost by 7, that is not indicative of the fight that this team shows. And, I mean, against the Grizzlies team that's middle of the road in the Western Conference, that you don't want to do that, especially when you got some tough games coming up. You don't want to go into this and lose after being up by at least 5 and really playing well through most of this game.
Right. So right now, the Wizards are in the 9th spot in the standings, which is always a little bit difficult because there's always a question, should you tank and get better picks, which a lot of diehard basketball heads think is what the Wizards would be in their best interest. But, you know, I think as a group, well, I know that Tim is pro-tanking. Champ, you say that you're anti-tanking, right? Arun, what is your...
anti-tanking.
And Arun, your thoughts?
As long as you're playing the young guys and they happen to win, then it's fine. But, yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to get a good pick. This draft isn't particularly top-heavy, so I don't think it's really going to matter if they don't get a top 3 pick in this draft either way.
And Brian Brennan is a fan of a team that's often towards the bottom. What is your belief on the tanking?
Yeah, I'm used to this. I think personally you should always, if you're in a situation like that, you should always go for the worst possible draft pick and just try and get the best player possible. But Arun's right. This draft isn't great. So the Wizards, it's a tough spot for the Wizards. I don't know what I would do if I was them. It's a tough spot.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be 9th, though. So we'll let the record straight. If you can get to 8th and make the playoffs and maybe make a run, although I think playing Milwaukee in the first round as an 8th seed would be a disaster for the Wizards. But obviously, yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where it goes from there. Real quickly, upcoming games, Bulls at Wizards. It's tomorrow, Tuesday, if you're not listening live to this podcast. Tuesday at 7. I'll be doing one of my Pokemon Tuesday streams, I think, over on my Weapon Games channel, where we'll broadcast live the final quarter while I play some Pokemon. If people are interested in watching both, they can check it out on my Twitch channel, and we'll share it on our Facebook page as well. But it'll be an interesting matchup against the Chicago Bulls. They're the 10th seed right now. They're almost identical records. Their percentages are .353 and .352. The Wizards have 2 less losses and 1 less win, so they played 3 less games. But it's approximately the same record. So real quickly, Champ, what do you think about that matchup at home tomorrow at 7?
I mean, both teams are jockeying for playoff positioning. I mean, they're both chasing that 8th playoff spot. And again, I'm anti-tanking, because with the draft lottery, you never know where you're going to be at when it comes to the draft. So you don't want to tank and then still end up getting a bad draft spot. So this team needs to go out and still play well. They got to deal with Zach LaVine. I think that this is a winnable game for them, and they definitely need to get this win because they actually play the Bulls in a home-and-home that's spread out throughout this week. So they definitely want to get the momentum against the Bulls with this game right here.
Right. It's actually not necessarily a home and home because I believe the other game is after the All-Star break. So we do play them twice upcoming, but I think one is on the other side. So I think the only other game...
You're right. Yeah, that's correct.
The only other game that actually happens before the All-Star break is on Wednesday, so the very next night against a team that Brian knows very well, so I'll let him preview it real fast, against the New York Knicks in Madison Square Garden. It's a 7:30 start on Wednesday. What are your thoughts, Brian, on that matchup?
Well, we just traded our best player, Marcus Morris, at the trading deadline, so it's a very young team. They're going with a lot of kids, and a couple veterans who may get cut eventually. But they're actually playing better. They were on a 4-game winning streak until they lost to the Hawks yesterday. So we'll see how this game goes. They're in a position where they're going to be in the lottery, but it is nice to see some nice players develop. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to as a Knicks fan this season.
Right. Unfortunately for Capitals fans, the game just got worse, and now it is 4-1 Islanders pretty much right away into this period. It is definitely disappointing for sure. I'm quickly scrolling through, if you're watching the Facebook Live feed, the two different teams for the NBA All-Stars. It's going to be an interesting matchup. They actually have the draft public, which I'm always happy with because a couple of years ago they didn't do that. Giannis versus Team LeBron. It should be an interesting matchup. It was fun watching them do their draft. It's definitely going to be a fun matchup. Both players were selecting players the other team wanted on their team. It'll be close. I like the new setup that they're doing where with each quarter being separate and then it's sort of a game to 24 plus, I think, beyond this highest score total. So it'll be interesting. It's kind of complicated to explain, especially with only a minute or two left in our Wizards talk. But we'll definitely talk about it more next week. We'll recap these two games and maybe break down our thoughts on All-Star Weekend. And so, yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us for the Wizards Talk. We're actually going to keep you in the Listeners Lounge, and I'll bring you back during our Defenders Talk. So I won't have you give your normal outros, but I'll let Carol get into the music break right now.
No doubt. Appreciate that great NBA talk and talking about the Bradley Beal snub for All-Star, because I definitely was going to have that question, but I know y'all addressed it, so appreciate y'all taking that time. And right now for our music break, we're going to bring to you the track that I brought to you last week, Brian Hart, Submissive, produced by Beats by CP3, along with Brian Hart. I'm trying to find it on the board right now, and I cannot find it. Where'd it go? There it goes, right there. We'll be back in 3 minutes with XFL Defenders Talk, and hopefully the Capitals getting a rally from being down 4-1 early in the second period. They just dropped the gloves. I didn't get a chance to check it out, but hopefully it'll get a chance to give the Capitals some momentum going into the rest of this game. And we'll be back talking XFL Defenders, DC Defenders in the XFL kickoff weekend, and some great football that you guys need to check out. We'll be back shortly.
Thinking about you
Sports on the Hill podcast, TruRadio Network, CP3, live from the lab, coming to you talking XFL DC Defenders, first week of the new inaugural football league that I didn't know what to expect. We talked about it last week, but before we get into the roundtable, I'm going to go ahead and give my 2 cents about what I saw, because I definitely enjoyed the 30-19 victory that the DC Defenders played against the Seattle Dragons. It was a very entertaining game. Robbie broke down some of the subtle differences in the game with the kickoff, that instead of the teams, as soon as the ball is kicked off, that they, as you normally see in the NFL, that the teams go down the field, they have to wait until the receiving team receives the ball before any of the men can head downfield to go to block. So that was very interesting. The 3-point, 2-point, 1-point conversions definitely add some and interesting scoring scenarios. Even if you're down 9 points, you know, that's still considered one possession, because you can get a touchdown and score 3 points on a point after touchdown. So I thoroughly enjoyed the game. The defense for the Defenders, I mean, I was thoroughly impressed with the way they played, containing the run, getting pressure on the quarterback. Pick six. They had a special teams punt block for a touchdown. I'm liking this XFL already. Hopefully we'll be able to get some press credentials for some of these home games. I know it's a home game this weekend, and I know Robbie might try to put in credentials and see if we can get one of us can get down into this game. I know Robbie's schedule is a little bit tighter, but if we can get credentials, I will definitely head down there this Saturday. I believe it's a 2 o'clock start against New York, and I know we got Brian Brent on the line, who's also following the New York team, so we're going to talk about them a little bit also. But I'm telling folks, man, they say the ticket prices are reasonable. They had about 17,000 folks out there for the kickoff weekend, and I definitely enjoyed the game. I missed some of it in transit, but it was good to see a DC team dominate opening week and actually get a victory, you know, at home, playing some good football. Robbie, did you get what was your take on? I know you got a chance to watch it. Y'all was enjoying a nice little party over there with all the sports weekend stuff that was going on. What did you take away from this, inaugural weekend of the DC Defenders defeating Seattle?
Yeah, no, I thought it was really good. I had a lot of the people that are going to be on in this next roundtable to watch it with me. They had a lot of fun over in the man cave. Real quickly, I was just going to go through how the scoring broke down, just to give people a little sense of the flow. Just a super fast rundown, just so that way they know, especially because it's the first ever victory. There was a field goal to start in the first quarter for the DC Defenders. The Dragons got a touchdown, but they did not make their... I think they went for a 1-point conversion on that one. It doesn't display what they go for here, but it was just no extra points. Again, it's either 1, 2, or 5, depending on whether or not you're starting from the 3, 5, or 10-yard line. So it was 6-3 at the end of the first. There was a punt that was blocked and returned for a touchdown. They tried to go for 2, I believe, and it was incomplete. So that made it 6-9. Then there was a touchdown for a 13-yard pass by the Dragons. They did a 1-point attempt that was successful. So that made it to 13-9. The DC Defenders got a field goal, 54-yard field goal at the very end of the second quarter, which I was really impressed because he'd already missed a 30-something yard field goal early on. I was like, there's no way he's going to make a 54, and he did, and it made it 12-13, so they were down 1 going into halftime. The Defenders were able to score a 39-yard deep touchdown pass, and a 1-point attempt was successful on the rush. And that made it 19-13, and there was some debate in the man cave on whether they should have gone for more than 1 point there to make it a 7-point game, but they made it a 6-point game. Then the Dragons scored a touchdown, and they missed their 1 or 2 point conversion. I forget which they went for. So they made it 19-19. And then the Defenders scored a touchdown, another deep pass. This one's 31 yards to make it 25-19. They also didn't make the extra point. And then in the fourth quarter, there was an additional touchdown. This was an interception, a defensive touchdown that was returned for 69 yards to make it 31-19. And it ended up being pretty close to the predicted score. I think it was predicted to be about 51.5, and it was 51 points. And is that right? No, it was 50 points. It was supposed to be 51 or something. It was within a point or two, which we were surprised by. And the over-under had us favored at 9.5, and we ended up winning by 12. So it was actually ended up being pretty close. So with that, I'm going to bring in some of the other people in our group to talk about it. We're going to bring in, I'm just going to bring everybody in. Same group of people that was just on during our Wizards talk. We got Brian Brennan, Ken DC People's Champ, Arun, and Tim joining us once again on the TruRadio Network hotline. So I'm going to start off with Brian. I know that you watched this game, and then you ended up watching the New York team the following day. I'll get your thoughts on the New York team a little bit later on in the show. But Brian, what were some of your thoughts seeing DC's first game?
Yeah, it was really cool to watch the first XFL game, or first XFL 2.0 game. It was really, I thought everything about it was really awesome. This type of football is something I really think is really interesting, especially when you see crazy ideas like what they do on the kickoff, and the fact that you can go for a 3-point conversion or a 2-point conversion or a 1-point conversion. There's no more extra points. I think it's all really interesting, and I think it's a lot better than the original. I think it's a lot more planned out than the original XFL. I mean, I've seen the 30 for 30 from ESPN on the XFL, and the first one just seemed like it was all about wrestling and sex, and it was all in your face. And this one seems like it's about the football, and that's what I really like. That's the thing I like the most about this incarnation of the XFL. And thank you again, Robbie, because you explained the rules in really good detail to me before this first DC Defenders game. And that helped me understand it a lot better, because I would have had no idea watching some of what happened in this game if you hadn't told me the rules before we watched this game.
Yeah, unfortunately last week I didn't get to break down all of the rules, including, fully understanding the 1-2-3 point. It's very interesting. I also thought the 2 yards downfield, being able to block downfield without it being an illegal man downfield was helpful. And as Carol alluded to earlier, the kicking, I think it's interesting. If it doesn't go at least a certain yardage, you end up getting it on the 45 of your opponent, which is crazy. Also, if it's a touchback, it's a major touchback, they get it on the 35.
Robbie, if it doesn't pass the 20-yard line, it goes to the 45.
Yeah, so that's crazy to me. So, so you have to kick it within a very certain specific area, or you get penalized, and the two teams match up much closer to the ball, so you don't have these players running full force downfield like missiles and hurting each other. So I think they really thought some of these stuff through, and they really asked a lot of the fans what they wanted to see. Ovechkin just had a beautiful shot that almost trickled through, but the goaltender was able to have it. There's still a live Caps game going on.
Hey, Robbie, I want to address the point that Brian was making. XFL 2.0, man, you talked about it offline. If you recall, when Vince McMahon first rolled out the XFL, it was more of going up against trying to counter the NFL and trying to put a so-called better product out there on the field. Now the fact that they're partnered up with NFL and have the financial backing and the corporate backing between ESPN, ABC, and Fox, I believe this XFL is going to do well, because the NFL is the only league that doesn't have so-called developmental league, where some of the players that don't make the pros can go to play elsewhere. Because if you think about it, only 10 to 12% of the NCAA players actually make the pros. So you have a lot of these players that try to go to the semi-pros or the arena football league, stuff like that, that just went out of business again for the third time, and I don't know how long. And then I think this reincarnation of the league, the XFL, is definitely going to last, and I think it's definitely a good product that they had out there this past weekend.
Yeah, Kuzi just got hurt on a play that seemed a little dirty, so he's back in the dressing room. Hopefully he's okay, but he was holding his arm, did not look good, so hopefully it's nothing too major on that. It's still 4-1 about halfway through the game. Now we're in the 10th minute of the second period. Yeah, I really enjoyed the football, and I thought that it was slightly more elevated college football game and not quite as fast-paced as a pro game. I like the 1 foot down. It makes understanding what it catches a little bit better. I also really loved that we got to look into the replay booth and we watched them rewind the video and saw what they were seeing. I thought that was really interesting because you're always wondering, what are they looking at? Do they see stuff differently than what we see it? And yes, they took a little bit longer on some of the reviews, but I like the fact that I think they really got it right. And so that was some of the cool things. Tim, what are some of your thoughts on it?
I really love the new rules. You can already tell from the articles coming out that the NFL is probably going to adopt at least the kickoff rule. I think it's cool. It's like foosball, where you have the two lines of players like right up next to each other, opposite, just staring at each other. It's kind of funny. And obviously the extra point thing is very, very popular. A lot more action. I think the thing that's going to help DC, besides the Redskins issues, is the stadium that we play in. It's the perfect size. It's a great location. DC can sell 17 to 20,000 seats for the XFL games. We wouldn't want to play this in FedEx Field, for example, because it would be really empty. But overall, I like the team. Cardale Jones is one of the biggest stars in the league. He clearly is playing well, had a ton of passing yards. And, if DC went far and made it to the playoffs, I think it would be a pretty big deal, probably bigger than, like, the Mystics. No offense, but...
Right. No, I mean, it's a good point. We actually do have some breaking Mystics news. Unfortunately, Christy Tolliver will not be returning. She's still a coach of the Wizards, but she's going to be going back to the LA Sparks, unfortunately. That news came out today. Braden Holtby has just been put into the game because, unfortunately, Sam just let in the 5th goal, and now it's 5-1, and now it's another really bad game for the Capitals, which is really disappointing. So we're not going to put the score back on screen anymore. I'm kind of done with that. And Arun, some of your quick thoughts on this. You also broke some news to me a few minutes ago, I believe, about the first XFL firing. Arun?
Arun's mute.
Arun, you're on mute.
Well, let me go ahead before Arun jumps in to give the breaking news, since we're breaking news on different leagues right now. Report came out about an hour ago about Quentin Dunbar of the Redskins requesting a trade or to be released. I'm not sure what it's about. I haven't had a chance to check it out. But remember when I talked about Trent Williams and he vowed not to play for the team and all of this talk about Rivera wanting to sit down with him? This is what you get when you have players that's under contract making vows not to play for the team, and then the team bending over backwards to accommodate an outdated player that they really don't need, that they can trade and get something else for. Now you have a young player that's on the rise, that's asking to be traded out of your organization when you're making moves trying to solidify your team. But we'll talk about that later when football coverage comes back for the NFL. We're covering the XFL right now. And Robbie, back to you.
Yeah.
I saw that headline, and I was just like, what the fuck, dummy?
Yeah. All right, so real quickly, Lars Eller, he kind of kicks it in, but they don't call it a kick in because he's not directing it. His boot doesn't leave the ice. He kind of angles it in. So for now, that goal I think is going to count. There was a ref right there, and so they didn't challenge it. So that goal will stand. So it makes it a little bit closer. It's now 5-2 Islanders. But Arun, are you with us? I guess not. All right. Anyway, he sent us this message in our group chat. The LA Wildcats have fired defensive coordinator and linebackers coach Pepper Johnson. So it's crazy that a defensive coach could already be fired after just 1 week, but I guess they felt that he did so bad, and the season is so short.
They also, sorry to interrupt, but the defensive captain of the team, who was obviously starting and playing a ton of plays, also tweeted that he got cut. So clearly they were like one loss top defensive player and the coach are out. They're not messing around.
That's
Crazy.
That's crazy. All right, so let me pull up a couple of the upcoming schedule, and I want to talk about some of the other teams and some of the other games real fast. So obviously we won 31-19, the DC Defenders over the Seattle Dragons, who I constantly want to call the Sea Dragons because if you read it, it's SEA Dragons. So that's an interesting marketing thing that they may. It may be tough in the future. Anyway, so the LA Wildcats lost horribly to the Houston Roughnecks in the second part of the Saturday doubleheader. They lost that game 37-17. I watched part of that game. The Roughnecks looked pretty good. The Wildcats looked pretty bad. Brian, did you end up watching any of that game?
I saw a little bit of it, but like you said, Houston looked like a really dominant team, and LA, clearly there are some sort of issues with everything you said with them firing their defensive coordinator, who actually used to play for the Giants, and what happened with their defensive captain too. So maybe things aren't quite in order in LA yet.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then the next day, Champ, did you see any of these other games? I'll just ask that question right off the bat.
No, I only saw the Defenders game, and I was thoroughly entertained by the Defenders game. And yeah, that's all I got for you right there. The Defenders game was all I watched this weekend for XFL, and I love the fact that we have a team in Washington D.C. that can play offense and defense.
And special teams.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, and the special teams. I thought that was good too. So yeah, they have all the facets, and they started off a little slow, but they definitely played well. Let's get into the next game. I know that Brian watched it, so I'll talk to him just for a second about it. The New York Guardians versus the Tampa Bay Vipers. The Guardians ended up winning that game 23-3 as the first half of the Sunday games. I thought the Guardians played really well. I watched that game. Where are the Guardians playing, Brian, and what are your thoughts on your New York team?
The Guardians are playing at MetLife Stadium, which is where the Giants and Jets play. I think that personally it's not a great choice for a venue because this is the XFL and it's not quite the NFL, so they're not going to get huge crowd sizes. And I feel like a better place to play would have been Red Bull Arena, which is where the New York Red Bulls, the MLS team, plays. But yeah, I think that the crowd that was there, I mean, I was hooked right away. I had a choice basically between rooting for the Defenders because I live here now and the Guardians because I'm from New York, and I was pretty hooked by the Guardians right away. I really loved the style they played. They were defensive. They were great on defense and offense as well. I thought they really clicked against this game. I mean, maybe Tampa Bay is not the best team. Who knows? But I really loved what I saw from the Guardians in this game, and I was totally hooked from this game to be a fan of that team. So I'm rooting for them the rest of the way going forward, no doubt.
It sounds good. Well, we'll definitely we'll get your thoughts on that game for sure next week. And I know that Carol is in talks with some other people to also talk XFL in upcoming weeks. I know that I won't necessarily be doing hour 2, and Carol will be leading some of the charge on that coming forward, but I'm sure that he'll want to get your New York perspective for that one. And then the last game was the Battlehawks versus the Dallas Renegades. The Battlehawks ended up winning. The Renegades had an opportunity at the end to march down the field, but threw an interception. I thought it was actually a pretty decent game between these two teams. It was kind of interesting to see Bob Stoops back coaching again. You know, he was a long-time coach for Oklahoma. I think that the style of this can be similar to a college football, so I think that this might actually be a good fit for him. Unfortunately for him, he got that loss, and it's unfortunate for the DC Defenders because the Battlehawks are actually in our division where the Dallas team is on the Western Conference. So, again, there's 4 teams in each division. The Defenders, the Vipers, the Guardians, and the Battlehawks are in the Eastern, so that's who we're fighting for. Top 2 teams make the playoffs in each side, and then the winner of that sort of semifinal will play in the XFL Finals. Next week, we've got a New York Guardians at the DC Defenders. That'll be another 2 o'clock game. As Carol mentioned, we're going to try again for press passes. If we do get them, we'll let you know. The Viper, so that'll be a battle between 2 1-0 teams. It's interesting how these ended up playing out, because the next game is the Vipers versus the Dragons. Both of those teams lost their first game, so they're going to be fighting to try to stay out of the cellar. The next game on Sunday is also going to be between the Renegades and the Wildcat, and both of those teams lost week 1, so they're going to try to fight to stay out of the cellar. And then the last game is going to be between the Battlehawks and the Houston Roughnecks, and both of those teams won. So 3 out of 4 Eastern teams won last week, and so it'll be interesting to see after week 2 where the standings will end up being. But some interesting matchups for week 2 as well. I'll start off with Champ. What are your thoughts about playing the New York Guardians next week?
I will say this. Cardell Jones is a grown-ass man. He went out there in his first XFL game and threw for almost 300 yards, threw 2 touchdowns, and no turnovers. The defense played well. Special teams played well. I'm predicting that the Defenders will get their second win going up against New York. No disrespect, but it's just facts. That's all I got for you.
All right. Before I let Brian give his take on it, Carol, I want to get your thoughts on this matchup real quickly between the Guardians and the Defenders.
Well, I didn't really get a chance to check out the Guardians, but I know they're the top team still supposed to be in the league. I'm impressed with the Defenders' defense. Cardell Jones, he played well in the second half. First half, I saw some issues, low throws, throwing off his back foot, not necessarily reading what the defense was doing, but he definitely stepped up in the second half, so I don't want to be super critical of the win. Hopefully he can have a complete game from the start and doesn't have some of those hiccups that he had. He didn't have any turnovers like he mentioned, but you want to see your quarterback crisp through the whole game, not just through the second half of it. But it was I'm loving what I'm seeing from the. I'm a defensive guy, so the pressure, the turnovers, the defensive scoring, that's all the beautiful thing for me. So I'll definitely be tuned in if we're not there live, bringing you the game down at Audi Field on Saturday at 2 o'clock versus New York. Hey.
Cool. All right, so Brian, I'll let you have your rebuttal against the Guardians versus Defenders. What do you think about this matchup?
Well, I still don't really quite know what to expect because we're only played 1 week and everything. Even the teams that started 0-1 could end up winning the XFL championship. But I really like what I saw from our defense, and I really like what I saw, especially at quarterback, from Matt McGloin. I think, like Cardell Jones, he went to a Big Ten power.